Lieutenant Jack Harris stood at the viewing deck of North American Space Command's orbital station. His heart beat faster as he watched the alien ship approach. The massive vessel gleamed like a crystal in the sunlight, its surface reflecting the stars as it moved with impossible grace for something so large. "Lieutenant Harris, report to command immediately," said a voice over the intercom. Jack ran his fingers through his short brown hair and took a deep breath. He had no idea why they were calling for him. He was just a linguist, not a diplomat, or a high-ranking officer. 5 minutes later, Jack stood in the command center, surrounded by the station's top brass. Admiral Paul Wright, a stern man with gray hair and piercing blue eyes, gestured for Jack to join the small group gathered around the main display. "Lieutenant, the aliens are calling themselves the Centauri. They've requested someone with advanced pattern recognition capabilities for their delegation," said the Admiral. "Your test scores in that area are the highest we've ever recorded." Jack blinked in surprise. "Sir, I'm just a linguist." "Not just any linguist," said Dr. Olivia Reed, the station's chief science officer. "Your ability to decode unknown language structures is unmatched. The way you cracked that ancient script last year in just hours when others had been working on it for decades. That's why you're here." The main screen flickered, showing the face of the Centauri ambassador. The alien had smooth, pale blue skin, with faint patterns that seemed to shift like clouds. Its eyes were large and entirely black with no visible pupils. "We require one human delegate to accompany us," the alien said, its words translated through a device that gave its voice a musical quality. "Our council seeks to understand your species' cognitive processes." Admiral Wright turned to Jack. "This is our first contact with any alien civilization. The future of Earth could depend on making a good impression." Jack felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "When do I leave?" "Now," said the Admiral. "Pack only essentials. You depart in 1 hour." Jack's hands trembled slightly as he packed his bag in his quarters. He included a few personal items, a photo of his parents, a small notebook with handwritten notes, and a worn paperback copy of his favorite book. He wasn't sure what to bring to meet an advanced alien civilization, but these simple things grounded him. As he zipped up his bag, his roommate and fellow officer Steve Wilson entered. "So you're the chosen one," Steve said with a grin. "Always." "Knew you were weird, Harris, but weird enough for aliens? That's impressive." Jack laughed, grateful for the moment of normalcy. "Keep my plants alive while I'm gone, okay?" "Sure thing, space traveler." Steve's expression grew serious. "Represent us well out there." An hour later, Jack stood in the airlock. Wearing his formal uniform, Dr. Reed adjusted his communication device, a small translucent disc attached to his collar. "This will help you understand them if their translation technology fails," she explained. "It contains all our linguistic data, and Jack observed everything. Every detail could be important." The airlock door opened, revealing 2 Centauri waiting in the connection tube. They were taller than humans, with slender bodies and graceful movements. Their simple robes shimmered with subtle color changes that seemed to match their breathing patterns. "Lieutenant Jack Harris," one of them said. "I am Keelan, first envoy of the Centauri Collective. This is my assistant, Mirai." Jack nodded respectfully. "I'm honored to represent Earth." "Follow us," said Keelan. "The journey to Nexus Station will take 3 days in hyperspace. During this time, you will be briefed on Council protocol." Jack followed the aliens into their ship. The interior was nothing like he had imagined. Instead of the sterile, metallic environment of human spacecraft, the Centauri vessel felt almost organic. The walls curved gently and glowed with a soft light that seemed to respond to their presence. The air smelled faintly of something like cinnamon and sea salt. "Your quarters," said Mirai, gesturing to a doorway that formed in the wall as they approached. Inside was a simple room with what appeared to be a bed, though it looked more like a shallow pool filled with something that wasn't quite liquid and wasn't quite gas. "Rest now," said Keelan. "We will begin your orientation when you wake." Left. Alone, Jack cautiously tested the strange bed with his hand. It felt surprisingly comfortable, molding perfectly to his touch. He sat down, then slowly lay back. The substance adjusted to his body, supporting him perfectly. Jack stared at the ceiling, which displayed what looked like stars moving slowly past. He was probably the first human to lie in an alien bed, aboard an alien ship heading to an alien political center. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Sleep seemed impossible, but exhaustion from the day's events soon pulled him under. He woke to a gentle chiming sound. The wall opposite his bed now displayed what looked like writing, symbols flowing and changing. "Good morning, Lieutenant Harris," came Mirai's voice from nowhere in particular. "I trust you rested well. Your orientation begins in 30 minutes. Refreshment is available to you." A section of the wall transformed into something like a shelf, holding a bowl of what looked like blue fruit and a container of clear liquid. Jack approached cautiously and sniffed the liquid. It smelled like water, but with a hint of sweetness. The fruit resembled blueberries, but were the size of apples. He took a small bite. The taste was pleasant, like a mixture of strawberry and mint. After eating and finding what turned out to be a bathroom hidden behind another appearing doorway, Jack was ready to begin his crash course in galactic politics. Keelan met him in a large room with walls that displayed moving images of different planets and species. "The Galactic Council consists of 12 advanced civilizations," Keelan explained. "Earth is the first new contact in over 200 years to be considered for potential membership." Jack raised his eyebrows. "I'm honored, but why us? Why now?" Keelan's skin patterns shifted slightly. "Your species has been observed for some time. Your adaptability is unusual. Some council members find it concerning. Others are intrigued." "Concerning how?" Jack asked. "That is not for me to say," Keelan replied. "But you should know that your presence at Nexus Station is more than a diplomatic formality. You will be evaluated." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of evaluation?" "You will learn soon enough," said Keelan. "For now, let us continue with the protocols you must observe." As Keelan began explaining the complex greeting rituals for each species, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more happening than a simple diplomatic mission. He was being taken to Nexus Station for a purpose beyond what he had been told, and somehow he knew that whatever test awaited him there would determine far more than his own fate. The 3 days aboard the Zintari ship passed quickly. Jack spent most of his time learning about the 12 species that made up the Galactic Council. Each alien race had its own unique biology, culture, and history. Some were warlike in their past. Others had always been peaceful. All of them had technologies far beyond what humans had created. On the final day of their journey, Keelan entered Jack's quarters without the usual chiming alert. "We will arrive at Nexus Station in 1 hour," the alien said. "There is something you should know before we dock." Jack sat up straight, noting the unusual patterns shifting across Keelan's blue skin. "What is it?" "The Council has prepared a test for you," Keelan said. "The outcome will affect whether Earth is welcomed or isolated from galactic society." Jack's stomach tightened. "What kind of test?" "I cannot say more. It would be seen as giving unfair advantage." Keelan moved toward the door, then paused. "Your species adapts quickly. This is both your strength and what makes others fear you." Before Jack could ask more questions, Keelan left. Jack stood by the window-like section of wall that showed the space outside. Stars streaked by as the ship traveled. Faster than light, soon the streaking stars slowed and normal space appeared again. Jack gasped at what he saw. Nexus Station hung in space like an enormous snowflake made of metal and crystal. It was at least 10 times larger than Earth's orbital station, with delicate-looking arms extending in all directions. Ships of various designs moved around it like bees around a hive. "Lieutenant Harris, please prepare for docking," Mirai's voice announced. Jack put on his formal uniform and took several deep breaths to calm his nerves. Whatever test awaited him, he would face it as best he could. When the ship docked, Jack followed Keelan and Mirai through a series of corridors. The station was even more impressive from inside. The walls seemed to be made of a clear material that somehow supported the entire structure while offering views of space and the station's interior. Simultaneously, aliens of various shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some floated rather than walked. Others had multiple limbs or no limbs at all. Jack tried not to stare, but it was difficult not to be amazed by the diversity of life forms. They stopped at a massive door that slid open silently. Inside was a large circular chamber with 12 raised platforms arranged in a semicircle. Each platform stood or floated representatives of the council races. In the center of the room, floating above a small pool of shimmering liquid, was a being made entirely of shifting light patterns. The Grand Arbiter, Keelan whispered to Jack. The oldest living being in known space and head of the council. Jack was led to a small platform directly facing the semicircle. He stood tall, trying to project confidence despite his racing heart. Human. Jack Harris, the Grand Arbiter spoke, its voice somehow inside Jack's head rather than in the air. Your species seeks recognition and trading rights within our coalition. Yes, Arbiter, Jack replied, hoping he was following proper protocol. Earth wishes to join the galactic community. Before such privileges can be granted, you must demonstrate your worthiness. The Arbiter continued. A tall, insect-like alien with 6 limbs and shimmering green eyes stepped forward from one of the platforms. I am Vrex of the Tellurian Hive, it said, its voice clicking and hissing. We question whether humans are ready to join our community. Your kind advances too quickly without the wisdom that comes from slow development. Jack kept his face neutral, though he felt a flare of defensiveness. We're eager to learn from those with more experience, he said carefully. Another council member, a floating cloud of tiny particles that somehow stayed in a humanoid shape, spoke next. The human species has moved from primitive flight to space. Travel in less than a century. Such rapid advancement is concerning. The Grand Arbiter's light patterns pulsed. It has been decided. You will be given access to the Mindforja neural interface technology used to train our pilots and engineers. Mastery typically requires a decade of intensive study. Jack waited, sensing there was more. If you can achieve even basic proficiency, within your 3-day stay, we will consider opening diplomatic channels with Earth. The Arbiter finished. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Vrex, the Tellurian representative, clicked its mandibles loudly. Impossible. Their brains are too primitive. Jack felt a mix of anxiety and determination. The future of Earth's relationship with these advanced beings rested on his shoulders. When do I start? He asked. Now, said the Arbiter. Jack was led from the chamber by a new alien, a blue-skinned being with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its face. It was shorter than Jack, but walked with the confident grace of a dancer. I am Professor Nera of the Altarian Academy, the alien said. I will oversee your training in the Mindforge. They walked through more corridors until they reached a section of the station that seemed older than the rest. The walls here were solid rather than transparent, with strange symbols etched into the surface. The Mindforge was created by an ancient race long before the Council formed, Nara explained. It connects directly to the user's neural patterns and allows them to manipulate energy through thought alone. They stopped at a round door that opened to reveal a perfectly spherical room. The walls were covered in small, glowing nodes. This technology forms the basis of our most advanced systems, Nara continued. Pilots use it to control ships. Engineers use it to design structures. Healers use it to mend injuries at the cellular level. Jack stepped into the sphere, feeling a strange, tingling sensation as he crossed the threshold. In 10 years of study, a skilled student might learn to create and maintain complex energy structures, Nara said. After 3 months, most can barely form a stable sphere for a few seconds. A transparent headset was handed to Jack. It looked like a thin band with 2 small pads that would rest against his temples. By the end of your 3 days, if you can create and maintain a simple cube structure for more than 5 minutes, the Council will consider it. Adequate progress, Nara said. Though her tone suggested she thought even this was impossible, Jack placed the headset on, adjusting it so the pads touched his temples. What do I do? Clear your mind and visualize energy flowing through you, Nara instructed. Then attempt to direct that energy into a pattern. As soon as the words were spoken, the headset activated. Jack felt a strange sensation wash over him, as if his consciousness was expanding beyond his body. The sphere around them filled with streams of floating light that moved like water. When Jack tried to focus on the lights, they scattered like startled fish. His first attempts to form any pattern resulted in chaotic swirls and random flashes. "Don't be discouraged," Nara said after an hour of failed attempts. "No one expects results on the first day." But as the session continued, Jack began to notice something. The energy seemed to respond not just to his direct thoughts, but to deeper patterns in his mind. When he stopped trying so hard and let his subconscious work, small clusters of light would briefly form before dissolving by the end of the day. While Nara was distracted by a message on her communication device, Jack managed to form a stable sphere of light for nearly 30 seconds before it collapsed. He said nothing about this small victory, but as he returned to his assigned quarters that night, Jack felt a spark of hope. The challenge seemed impossible, but he had already seen progress. Perhaps humans really did learn differently. And perhaps that difference might just save Earth's future in the galaxy. Jack barely slept that night. His mind kept replaying what had happened in the Mind Forge. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the streams of light responding to his thoughts. There was a pattern to it, something just beyond his understanding. He got up and paced around his quarters. The room was comfortable but simple, with a bed similar to the one on the Zintari ship and a window looking out into space. Jack stared at the stars. Thinking about home and what this challenge meant for Earth, Jack grabbed his worn notebook and began writing. As a linguist, he was trained to look for patterns in language. Perhaps the Mind Forge was similar. It wasn't just about controlling energy directly. There was a deeper structure, like grammar in a language. By morning, he had filled several pages with notes and diagrams. His eyes were tired, but his mind was racing with new ideas. Professor Nara seemed surprised when Jack arrived at the Mind Forge chamber early. "You appear tired," she observed, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Perhaps you should rest instead." "I'm fine," Jack insisted. "Let's continue." Jack put on the neural headset, and once again the room filled with streams of light. This time he approached the task differently. Instead of trying to force the energy into shapes, he visualized himself as part of the system. He imagined the energy flowing through him, not just responding to him. The results were immediate and startling. The scattered lights began to gather around him, forming patterns that matched his breathing. "Interesting approach," Nara commented, watching closely. "Most beginners try to dominate the energy. You're trying to become part of it." Jack nodded but kept his focus. He gently guided the swirling lights into a simple cube shape. It wobbled at first, edges blurring and corners rounding, but it held for nearly a minute before dissolving. Nara's 4 eyes widened. "That was unexpected. Try again," Jack repeated the process. This time, the cube formed more quickly and held its shape longer. By midday, he could maintain it for nearly 2 minutes. "This is remarkable progress," Nara admitted. "But maintaining the structure under pressure is another challenge entirely." As if on cue, the door opened and several council observers entered the chamber. Among them was Vrex, the Tellurian representative, whose insect-like eyes fixed on Jack with obvious skepticism. "We heard reports of unusual progress," one of the observers said. "We wish to witness for ourselves." Jack felt their attention like a physical weight. His next attempt faltered, the cube collapsing after only 30 seconds. "A fluke, as I suspected," Vrex chittered. "The human will plateau soon enough." Jack took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He thought about what was happening. The presence of observers shouldn't affect the energy itself, only his reaction to them. The problem was in his mind, not the Mind Forge. He opened his eyes and tried again, this time imagining the observers as simply another part of the environment, like the walls or the floor. The lights responded, gathering and forming, not just a cube but a more complex shape, Pyramid with a cube as its base. The shape held for 3 minutes before Jack released it intentionally, feeling a need to conserve his mental energy. Impossible, one of the observers whispered. The human shows aptitude, another admitted reluctantly. Rex's mandibles clicked rapidly. Let us see if this progress continues tomorrow. One day of success proves nothing. After the observers left, Nara approached Jack with a curious expression. How are you doing this? Most species need months to achieve what you've done in hours. Jack considered his answer carefully. I think it's because I'm approaching it as a language rather than a technology. Languages are patterns, and humans are very good at recognizing patterns. But the Mindforge isn't a language, Nara said, confused. Isn't it? Jack replied. It has rules. It responds consistently to specific inputs. It has a structure that can be learned and manipulated. Sounds like a language to me. Nara seemed to consider this. Perhaps that is why your species advances so quickly. You see connections where others do not? They continued practicing through the afternoon. By the end of the second day, Jack could maintain complex geometric structures for over 4 minutes. Even with distractions, when the session ended, Jack was escorted back to his quarters by a silent security drone. His mind and body were exhausted, but he felt a growing confidence. He was making progress faster than anyone had expected. In his room, Jack found a small device waiting on his bed. It was a flat disk similar to the translation tool Dr. Reed had given him. A message floated above it, for the human delegate. Jack picked it up cautiously. As soon as he touched it, a holographic image appeared, the face of Rex, the Tellurian representative. Human, the recording began, your progress is concerning. Some on the council fear what it might mean if your kind gains access to our technologies. There are those who would prefer you fail tomorrow's final test. Jack frowned. Was this a threat? I do not share this opinion, the recording continued. True progress comes from challenge and diversity. I have arranged for tomorrow's test to be fair, despite pressure to make it otherwise. Prove your worth, human. The message ended, leaving Jack surprised and confused. The very alien who seemed most skeptical was now offering some kind of support. Jack sat on his bed and reviewed his notes. The Mindforge responded to his entire cognitive system, not just his conscious thoughts. When he tried to force it, the energy scattered. When he worked with it naturally, it responded smoothly. That night, as Jack lay in bed looking at the stars, he realized what the other species were missing. They approached the Mindforge as a skill to be mastered through repetition and discipline. Humans, however, had evolved as adaptable generalists, pattern recognizers who could make connections across different fields of knowledge. The neural interface wasn't just responding to his directed thoughts. It was interfacing with his entire cognitive system, including his subconscious mind. The more he allowed that natural connection to flow, the better the results. Jack smiled to himself as sleep finally came. Tomorrow would be the final test, and he now believed he could pass it. Not just for himself, but for all of humanity. In his dreams, patterns of light danced and shifted, forming shapes that told stories of Earth's future among the stars. Jack woke early on the third day. Today would determine Earth's future relationship with the galactic community. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also a calm confidence. As he prepared for the day, there was a chime at his door. Jack opened it to find Keelan waiting outside. The council has called a special session for your final test, the Zentari said. All members will be present. Jack nodded. I'm ready. Are you? Keelan's skin patterns shifted in what Jack had come to recognize as concern. What you've accomplished is already remarkable, but today's challenge will be much more difficult. I understand, Jack said. But I have to try my best for Earth. They walked through the station's corridors in silence. Other aliens they passed turned to stare at Jack. Word of the humans' progress had clearly spread. When they reached the Mindforge chamber, Jack was surprised to see it had been transformed. The spherical room was now much larger and viewing. Platforms had been installed around the edges. The council members were already seated, watching him with various expressions of curiosity, doubt, and in some cases, what looked like worry. The Grand Arbiter floated in the center, its light patterns shifting slowly. Human Jack Harris, you have shown surprising aptitude with the Mindforge. Today's challenge will determine Earth's standing in the galactic community. Professor. Nara approached with the neural headset. Today you must create and maintain a complex structure for a minimum of 5 minutes, she explained quietly. The structure must be stable and detailed. Jack took the headset and placed it on his temples. He felt the now familiar connection form as the Mindforge activated. The room filled with streams of light that moved like water around him. Begin, the Arbiter commanded. Jack closed his eyes briefly, centering himself. When he opened them, he began to shape the energy with his thoughts. This time, instead of simple geometric shapes, he envisioned a model of Earth's solar system. The energy responded instantly, forming a perfect miniature representation with planets orbiting the Sun. Each planet was detailed, showing major features. Like Jupiter's great red spot and Saturn's rings, gasps echoed through the chamber. Impossible, someone whispered, but Jack wasn't finished. He expanded the model to include neighboring star systems, then the entire sector. The display grew increasingly detailed, showing hundreds of stars and planets, all in their correct positions, relative to each other. This goes beyond basic proficiency, Nara said, her 4 eyes wide with amazement. Jack maintained the complex model with ease. In fact, it seemed to become more stable the longer he held it. He realized he could add even more detail, showing the movement of planets, the flow of solar winds, and even the paths of comets. After exactly 5 minutes, the Grand Arbiter spoke. The minimum requirement has been met. You may stop now, human. But Jack didn't stop. He wanted to show them the full extent of what humans could do. He continued for another 5 minutes, adding more detail and expanding the model further. Finally, after a full 10 minutes, Jack deactivated the interface himself. The room fell silent as the light display faded away, the Grand Arbiter's light. Patterns shifted rapidly. How is this possible? Even our most gifted take years to achieve such control. Jack removed the headset and faced the council. Humans learn differently, he explained. We don't compartmentalize knowledge, we connect. Your Mindforge is essentially a language, and languages are what humans do best. We find patterns, make connections, and adapt. Professor Nara stepped forward. The implications are significant. If humans can master the Mindforge so quickly, what else might they achieve? Vrex, the Tellurian representative, rose from his seat. His insect-like body towered over the others, but his posture was no longer threatening. I was skeptical of humans, but I now see your potential. Your species' ability to adapt and learn could bring new perspectives to our council. Not all council members seemed pleased. A crystalline being whose name Jack couldn't pronounce glowed in angry red. This is precisely why humans should be contained, not welcomed. They will master our technologies too quickly and upset the balance of power. Murmurs of agreement and disagreement spread through the chamber. The Grand Arbiter raised its glowing form higher. Silence! The room immediately quieted. We must discuss this development in private. Human Jack Harris, you will wait outside while the council deliberates. Jack was escorted from the chamber by Keelan. They waited in a small room nearby, neither speaking for several minutes. Finally, Jack broke the silence. What do you think they'll decide? Keelan's skin patterns shifted thoughtfully. You have surprised everyone, including me. Some fear rapid change, others see opportunity. It is difficult to predict. On Earth we have a saying, Jack said. The only constant in life is change. Wise words, Keelan replied. Perhaps that is what makes your species unique. You embrace change rather than fear it. After what seemed like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, they were called back to the chamber. The council members had rearranged themselves, with some now sitting closer together than before. Jack guessed that alliances had shifted during the deliberation. The Grand Arbiter floated forward. The council has reached a decision. It was not unanimous, but a majority has agreed. Jack held his breath. Earth will be granted provisional trading rights and diplomatic recognition, the Arbiter announced. A probationary period of 5 Earth years will follow, during which time limited technological exchange will be permitted under supervision. Jack felt a rush of relief and pride. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a start afoot in the door for humanity. Additionally, the Arbiter continued, we request that you, Jack Harris, remain as humanity's first official ambassador to the Council. Your unique perspective may help bridge the gap between our civilizations. This was unexpected. Jack had thought he would return to Earth after the test, but the opportunity to represent his species, to help guide humanity's first steps into the galactic community, was too important to refuse. I accept, Jack said simply. Vrex clicked his mandibles. In what Jack now recognized as approval, the human shows wisdom as well as skill. As the council session ended, various representatives approached Jack to introduce themselves properly. Some were friendly, others cautious, but all were now treating him with respect. Professor Nara was the last to speak with him. You have changed things here, she said. For the first time in centuries, the council is being forced to reconsider its assumptions. Jack smiled. That's what humans do best, challenge assumptions and find new ways forward. As he looked around at the assembled aliens, some curious, others wary, he realized that humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. They had claimed it took a decade to master. The human did it in just 3 days. And this was only the beginning. 6 months had passed since Jack's demonstration in the Mind Forge. Life on Nexus Station had fallen into a routine of sorts, though each day still brought new wonders and challenges. Jack sat in his office, a space that had been modified to accommodate human preferences. The walls displayed a view of Earth, updated daily by transmissions from home. His desk was cluttered with gifts from various council representatives, a crystal that hummed soft music from the Melodians, a plant with leaves that changed color based on the mood in the room from the Florans, and a small anti-gravity device from the Zintari that kept his coffee mug floating when not in use. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Professor Nara. Ambassador Harris, she greeted him. The new human delegation has arrived. Jack smiled. I'll be right there. He followed Nara through the station's corridors, which had become familiar over the months. Aliens of various species nodded respectfully as he passed. His success with the Mind Forge had earned him a reputation, and by extension, had elevated humanity's standing. They reached the docking bay just as the Earthship completed its connection to the station. The vessel was new, built with a combination of human innovation and alien technology shared under the provisional agreement. It was smaller than the massive council ships, but sleek and efficient. The airlock opened, and 5 humans stepped onto Nexus Station. Jack felt a surge of emotion at seeing people from Earth. Despite the wonders of the station and the importance of his work, he still missed home. The leader of the delegation was Dr. Lisa Evans, Earth's newly appointed Minister of Galactic Affairs. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and a confident stride. Ambassador Harris, she said, extending her hand. It's an honor to meet you in person. Jack shook her hand, smiling. The honor is mine, Minister. Welcome to Nexus Station. Dr. Evans introduced the rest of her team, 2 scientists, a diplomat, and a military officer. All had been selected for their adaptability and open-mindedness, traits that Jack had emphasized were essential for humans working in the galactic community. We have much to discuss, Dr. Evans said. The developments of the past 6 months have exceeded all expectations. Jack nodded. The council meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. That will give you time to settle in and prepare. Later, in a private meeting room, Jack briefed the delegation on what to expect. The council has been monitoring Earth's implementation of the knowledge-sharing program, he explained. They're impressed by how quickly we've adapted some of their technologies while maintaining our own unique approaches. The medical advancements alone have been revolutionary, said Dr. Ben Ruiz, one of the scientists. The cellular regeneration techniques have already saved thousands of lives, Jack nodded. That's exactly the kind of positive implementation That has convinced some of the more hesitant council members that humanity deserves greater inclusion. And what about the Mind Forge? Asked Commander Kate Phillips, the military representative. Has anyone else from Earth been allowed to try it? That's part of tomorrow's agenda, Jack replied. I've been pushing for a training program. The council has finally agreed to let a small number of humans learn the technique. Dr. Evans leaned forward. What changed their minds? Last we heard, they were still concerned about how quickly you mastered it. Jack smiled. I've spent the last 6 months showing them that our quick learning can be an asset, not a threat. I've helped solve several technical problems by applying human perspectives to alien technologies. And I've learned their ways too, showing respect for their traditions and protocols. Diplomatic as always, Jack, Dr. Evans said with a smile. But the truth is, you've become something of a legend back home. The human who did in 3 days what aliens take a decade to master. Jack felt uncomfortable with the praise. I was just in the right place at the right time, with the right background. The next day, the full council gathered for what would be a historic meeting. The chamber was filled to capacity, with representatives from all 12 council races and the human delegation. The Grand Arbiter's light form pulsed brightly as the session began. 6 months ago, we granted Earth provisional status in our galactic community. Today, we review that decision and consider the path forward. Various council members presented reports on Earth's progress. Most were positive, noting humanity's responsible use of shared knowledge and their creative approaches to old problems. Vrex, who had become one of humanity's strongest advocates, spoke last. When Ambassador Harris first demonstrated his abilities in the Mind Forge, many feared what it meant. Humans learn differently faster, more adaptively. Some saw this as a threat. The insect-like alien's green eyes swept across the chamber. I now see it as our greatest opportunity. For too long, the council has been stable but stagnant. We follow patterns established thousands of years ago. Humans bring fresh perspectives and new solutions. When all presentations were complete, the Grand Arbiter addressed the human delegation directly. Minister Evans, what does Earth hope to gain from closer integration with the council? Dr. Evans stood. Jack had helped her prepare for this crucial question. Knowledge and friendship, she said simply. Earth has much to learn, but we believe we also have much to offer. We don't seek to disrupt, but to enhance. Our quick adaptation isn't about domination, it's about survival. Throughout our history, humans have faced challenges by finding new ways forward. By working together, by learning and growing, she gestured toward Jack. Ambassador Harris showed what one human could achieve with access to your technology. Imagine what we could accomplish together, combining your experience with our innovation. The council chambers fell silent as the Grand Arbiter's light patterns shifted in complex patterns. Finally, it spoke. The probationary period is ended. Earth is granted full membership in the Galactic Council with all rights and responsibilities that entails. A ripple of reaction spread through the chamber, some pleased, others accepting, a few clearly unhappy but resigned. Jack felt a surge of pride and relief. This was what he had worked for these past months. Earth was no longer alone in the universe. Humanity had found its place among the stars. Later, at a celebration in the human delegation's quarters, Dr. Evans raised a glass in toast. To Ambassador Harris, who opened the door for all of humanity, Jack shook his head, smiling. To humanity's future in the stars, he countered, this is just the beginning. As the celebration continued around him, Jack looked out the window, at the vast expanse of space. Somewhere out there, other species were watching, waiting to see what humans would do next. They had claimed it took a decade to master. The human did it in just 3 days. And now, humanity was ready to show the galaxy what else they could achieve. The universe would never be the same again.